Welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 2. This is part 2 of our 7 episodes and 7 days blitz. We're going to be talking about UPSs or uninterruptible power supplies today. And when we were talking about this episode, I was making a joke we should title it UPSs, Only Sexy in the Dark. We're going to illuminate why that is in just a few. Now, Keith, when I say uninterruptible power supply, what comes to mind?
Hey, Bruce. Actually, you know what really comes to mind is a joke. And when I think about it, it's actually truly a dad joke. Are you ready?
Oh boy, Keith. I don't know. This is a dad-themed show, though, and when you say it's a dad joke, I feel kind of obligated to go ahead and let you tell it.
All right. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow who?
Moo!
Okay, Keith. I really should have come to expect nothing else from you. But I suppose that you thought of this from the interrupted angle. So just trying to figure out how your mind actually works after all these years.
Yeah, okay, wait. And actually, I've got another one that's even a little bit closer to our topic for today, I think. Are you ready? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting power.
Interrupting power who? Keith, actually, you are 100% correct. That is the point of a UPS. So that if the electricity to your home went out, much like He-Man, you would have the power, at least for a little while. So we're going to show everyone what a UPS is and why you might actually want one or more in your home. Keith, you have any questions before we get started?
Well, my first thought is this sounds kind of expensive. Providing power if the electricity goes out. Is anybody going to be able to afford this?
Keith, you come to the table with great questions. That's probably the best part of what we're going to be discussing today, Keith. All the units that we're going to talk about are under $100. Now, there are definitely more expensive units available out there, but for most of our viewers, I think the $100 or less unit is going to probably cover their needs. I've already alluded to the fact that UPSs come in a variety of sizes to meet the power requirements of the equipment you plan to connect and protect. It can be a little confusing trying to sort through the voltamps and watts, the units these devices are measured by, and trying to figure out how that relates to the equipment you need to protect. Maybe they're there just to serve to confuse you. Keith, are you confused yet?
No, I'm tracking you so far. I'm following. Although, as we start to introduce terminology like this, perhaps we should take half step back and demystify some of these concepts, right? So that all of our listeners can follow along and start to answer a couple of questions like, do I even want a UPS to begin with? And assuming the answer is yes, how would they go about determining the size that they would need based on, whatever it is, the equipment that they have that they feel like they want to protect in the first place?
All right, well, let's get started then. Let's talk about exactly what a UPS is. It's really like a power strip, but on steroids. Depending on the power handling capabilities of the UPS, it could be slightly larger than a power strip or as large as a small tower computer.
So let me guess. I think this is probably where the size and the pricing issues come into play. I'm assuming that the more power your UPS can supply, then the higher the price. Am I right?
Keith, you nailed it once again. So we're going to be looking at a couple of concepts here, right? The amount of power it's able to handle and the duration it's able to provide that power. Now we're going to be looking at units that are really designed to provide a small amount of power for a short period of time. That's going to keep the cost of these units much lower. Now if you need something that's going to run longer, perhaps hours, we may be looking at a much larger unit, or you may even have to look at a generator. Generator is going to be a little bit outside of the scope of our episode today, and maybe that's something that we can look at in the future. But for now, we're going to focus on UPSs that are going to give us a short duration of coverage in the event of a small power outage.
So the first thing is a blackout. So these are relatively common. Well, hopefully not that common, but people have experienced it. These are traditionally brought about by severe weather, right? A thunderstorm, a lightning strike. The last time in Michigan that happened, I believe it was just straight line winds that blew down some important infrastructure. So that's a blackout is what it sounds like. It's when the power is off, and that is something to be prepared for. It can last for hours. It can last for days in emergency situations. So that's blackouts. The second one is brownout. So a brownout unlike the blackout where the power goes out, a brownout is just where the voltage drops a little bit, right? It drops, it is noticeable oftentimes, and these can last for an extended period of time as well. And these can be unintentional, but they can also be intentional, right? So if there's a severe strain on the power grid in your community, your power company may decide to intentionally lower the voltage across the community to help prevent a complete blackout from happening, right? So that can happen as well. So we got blackout, we got brownout, and the third one would just be a voltage sag. So a voltage sag is kind of like a brownout in the sense that your voltage drops, but this is more transient. It's more sudden. It happens quickly, and it returns to normal pretty quickly as well, right? It just happens for a few moments, let's say. But you would notice it, right? Because you might look at the lights and see lights got a little bit dimmer and then came back. So those are kind of like the main three categories: blackouts, brownouts, and voltage sags.
Keith, you're absolutely correct. Of course, the units that we're looking at are really designed to provide power from anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes. So it's going to cover the majority of the events that you talked about. And the idea here is if the power is going to be out for longer than our battery can support, it's going to signal the computer to do a graceful shutdown.
Wait, they can signal your computer?
Not really the same signal, Keith. So what we're talking about is connecting our UPS to our computer with a USB or other type of cable, so that if the power is going to be out for an extended period of time, the UPS can send that signal to the computer to do a graceful shutdown and close all the files. Hey Keith, how about if you discuss the additional capabilities that a UPS provides that don't actually involve losing power, but would damage the equipment that was connected just to the wall outlet?
Yeah, sure, Bruce. I'd be happy to. So let's talk about that. There's a lot of jargons and terminology in terms of how they, or the types of things that they protect you from, right? A lot of terminology, things like power spikes, power surges, over voltages, noise, high frequency noise, power line noise, harmonic distortion, all of those things. And there's no common standard in terms of exactly how each of these manufacturers they won't necessarily use all the same terms, is what I'm trying to say. So I thought what I would do is kind of provide a kind of a framework to think about all of these things, and I was looking for some diagrams to help guide that discussion. I didn't really find anything that I liked on the internet, so I thought what I would do is just draw it myself, do my best here. So what I'm going to do is attempt to use one of these annotation tools. I'll use the pen. Okay, so let's see how this works. So what I'm going to do here is just highlight that the power signal, the voltage signal coming in from your wall outlet, is nothing more than a sine wave. It's a clean, I'll put that word in air quotes, clean sinusoidal function that repeats over and over again. And it has a frequency, and the frequency is 60 hertz. So I'm plotting this versus time. So what that means is that this sine wave completes a complete cycle in enough time that it can repeat 60 times in 1 second. So that time duration, I cannot do math in my head. So whatever 1 divided by 60 is, that's the amount of time it takes for that sine wave to happen from your outlet. So that's what's considered clean. And everything else that we're talking about, whether it's, spikes, surges, high frequency noise, just all that stuff, it just means some deviation from that, right? Some different kind of deviation for each one, but some kind of deviation from the perfect. And, honestly, it's dirty already. Even clean power, everything's dirty. All power is dirty. I suppose if it's just a matter of degree, right? I suppose if you're a scientist working at a particle accelerator, researching the Higgs boson, okay, maybe you've got clean power compared to regular people like us, right? But all power is dirty. But just for sake of argument, we'll start with this clean signal to help put a frame of reference on all of these terms. So let's start with a spike. So what is a spike? I will change colors to orange. So what a spike is you've got a situation where you have clean power, and then what happens? Boom, you've got a a lightning strike. And actually the amplitude would even be higher than that, but I can't draw that high on my TV here. But yeah, it's a very short duration, very high amplitude, very impulsive type of event that happens on your signal through your wall into your computer, right? So that's what that is. As I mentioned, typically from a lightning strike. It could also be from a restoration of power, by the way. Once power is out and your utilities, restore power, sometimes the restoration of power can be kind of violent, right? So you can get spike type of stuff happening just from bringing the power back. But typically it's a lightning strike, and frankly, I'm a little bit skeptical. If a lightning strike hits real close to your house, I'm not sure these UPS systems are going to be much help anyway, but most lightning strikes are not right next to your house, and that's why they're advertising. They protect from that type of dirtiness. All right, so that's a spike. Now let's talk about a surge. So for a surge, let me change colors. I'll go green. So let's say you've got a clean power situation going on. Nice little happy sine waves. And then all of a sudden, and it is a kind of sudden thing, it gets bigger. Damn it. It gets bigger, and then after a few cycles, it comes back down to normal levels again. In other words, this kind of zero to peak level and that is the same. But for a brief duration of time, it's gotten larger. Not as large as like a spike, but maybe 10%, 20%, 30%, measurably larger, but not dramatically larger. So, and for a few cycles, so that's still a very brief amount of time. It's still what you would call momentary, or moments that this happens, but not impulsive in nature. And so that is what a power surge would be. And honestly, this other term, over voltage, I think the term over voltage and power surges, those terms are very conflated, at least in my mind. They're kind of the same type of event, right, qualitatively. So now let's talk about noise, or high frequency noise at least. And for this, I'm going to erase some of this just to give me some more room to draw. I feel a little bad because I feel like I should save it for you, Bruce, so that you can put it on your refrigerator. I know you're so proud of me about my drawing skills with my mouse. All right, so anyway, back to my pen. What is high frequency noise? So again, you've kind of got status quo, but once you have high frequency noise, what does that look like? It looks like this. It looks like a hashy kind of back and forth, still following the overall trend, kind of enveloping the fundamental 60 hertz power signal, but it's messy. It's got this hashy, furry, thick kind of stuff going on around it. I'm using very qualitative terms, not mathematical terms here, but that is what high frequency noise will look like, right? That's a different kind of dirty, right? That's all that is. And then the last thing, harmonic distortion. Let me just draw a separate sine wave. So if you have harmonic distortion, once again, it's not going to be a perfect sine wave, but instead of it being super hashy, it's going to, again, qualitative term, Keith words, it's going to be kind of lumpy, right? So it's still going to follow this kind of sine wave shape, but it's going to be lumpy. Now, to precisely describe what harmonic distortion is, the easiest way to do it really is to go into the frequency domain. Then it's a lot easier. But I kind of have to describe what the frequency domain is and talk about linear superposition and blah, blah, blah. That would add another 5 minutes to this conversation. But harmonic distortion looks different than just pure noise, but it's nothing more than another kind of dirty. And what makes harmonic distortion interesting is that what they mean is, whereas a normal fundamental signal is 60 hertz when we're talking about power, that what you say is if there was a 120 hertz signal, something that was twice as fast, or a 180 hertz signal, 3 times as fast, or 240 integer multiples of 60 hertz, then what the thought process is that if you add all of those signals together, then you can reproduce this lumpiness. Or the inverse way to say it is that lumpy signal, if it can be decomposed into a fundamental pure 60 hertz signal and other pure sinusoidal signals that are strictly at different frequencies, 2x, 3x, 4x, then you can say, that's harmonic distortion. That signal is actually composed of harmonics linearly superimposed on top of each other. Again, in the time domain, hard, in the frequency domain, easy. And it doesn't mean anything to you other than it's another way to be dirty, and it's another way for a UPS to provide value to you, I suppose, or so they think. It's another bullet point. If you're an engineer, right, then you are interested in why those harmonics are there and chasing the whys. But anyway, that's hopefully I explained that a little bit, and hope that helps.
Wow, Keith. Sounds like UPSs provide a lot of protection for a fairly low price. Is there a downside?
Bruce, yeah, I think for most people it's going to boil down to cost, right? These things aren't free. But beyond that, there's also the issue of recycling the batteries, right? The batteries age, they do not have infinite life. And so what you're faced with is a situation where you do need to recycle these things. So it could be as frequent as every 2 years, or it could be maybe every 5 years, right? Or anywhere in between that. So there is the issue of recycling these batteries as well as the costs, kind of both of those things.
Wait, I heard recycling here. So if my UPS goes bad, I can't just throw it in the trash? Can't I just replace the entire thing?
Bruce, yeah, those are 2 very good questions. So let's start with the first one. The chemistry within these batteries is kind of special. It's not good for the environment, okay? So you really should not be just throwing them in the garbage, okay? And that goes for regular AA's and AAA's as well, by the way. But for these batteries, you really need to recycle them. That can involve taking a trip to your local recycling center. Another option would be these battery stores that you see everywhere. Well, maybe not everywhere, but they're relatively common. So you can take these backup batteries out to a battery store, and they will recycle them for you, sometimes for free, sometimes for a small fee. And your second question, well, why not just replace the whole unit? I mean, it goes without saying that there is a battery inside of that whole unit that you're replacing, but even if it's just the unit itself, you still need to recycle it. So in all situations, you need to do the recycle thing. And in terms of deciding, right, do I just replace the battery or do I replace the whole unit? It can come down to cost, right? Or maybe there's a new feature, right, that appeared on a different version of the UPS that you want to buy now. Or maybe you thought that the battery you just had to recycle died too quickly, and maybe you want to get a larger battery that has a longer life the second time around. That would be a reason to get a whole new UPS system. So those are some of the things that you need to think about. And fortunately, you've got an unboxing that you're about to do, correct? Where we can look at unboxing some whole new UPS units as well as replacing a battery in an existing one.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's a cut and dry answer to whether we should replace the battery if it goes bad or replace the entire unit.
Yeah, you definitely picked up what I was throwing down.
So what should we cover next?
Yeah, I say we go ahead and unbox these 2 new units. You told me off air that these 2 systems are for 2 different reasons, correct?
That's right, Keith. I want to protect several items in my basement. So my utility room has my internet connectivity and networking throughout the house. So the cable modem, a switch, and my firewall. As well, I have a couple of workstations and storage where we store all of this information for our YouTube channel, as well as all our family photos and video. And I want to protect those in a couple different ways. One, in case there is a power blip, I don't want to have the work that I'm doing interrupted. As well, I want to make sure that if there is any kind of one of those conditions that you mentioned, that I'm properly protected against them. You know, Keith, if we're going to watch an unboxing video, I could really use some snacks first.
That is a great idea. And I believe Nessa agrees with me that is a great idea. Did you know that Dad's Talk Tech has an official snack? Well, we do. The official snack of Dad's Talk Tech is our sponsor, Chicks and Sticks. I know. The irony is not lost upon us. But Chicks and Sticks is awesome. It really is good stuff. And it's the perfect snack to pour into a bowl and enjoy while you watch your favorite episode of Dad's Talk Tech.
Keith, that looks delicious. Could you do me a favor and pass me the bowl?
Yeah, sure thing, Bruce. No problem. Hold on. Here you go.
Keith, this bowl's empty.
Hey, you only asked me to pass the bowl. You didn't say anything about having Chicks and Sticks in it.
Well, I guess I'll know better next time. While we're watching, I'm going to go ahead and open up another bag of Chicks and Sticks. We are about to unbox our 850 volt amp 510 watt UPS or battery pack. And so this was designed to run that i9 pretty beefy workstation and a couple of monitors off of this system. Let's go ahead and get this out of the box. I'll let you know as we're opening this up, the battery is usually shipped not connected, so we'll have to open up the UPS itself. Looks like we've got a couple of screws that hold this on and connect up that battery before we can use this. So let's get this piece off of here. Notice we have quite a few outlets. You can never have too many of those on here. One thing you'll find is they've got the outlets broken up into a couple of different zones. So they've got some eco-conditioned outlets over here, and we'll explain what those do in just a little bit. Some of these outlets only have surge protection. Those are the increased voltage events that happen sometimes, and those can damage the equipment. That over voltage can fry power supplies, damage circuitry. And then some of the outlets are actually battery backed up, so they're going to give us that full power protection that if the power goes out, our equipment that's attached is going to run for some period of time after the power has been removed, up to the duration that the battery can keep that going. Along in our package, we have some basic instructions, the warranty guide. So it comes with a USB cable. One end is going to plug into our UPS, the other into our PC, and this gives us communication between the PC and the UPS itself. An important notice, plug in for 8 hours to charge first. So they want us to charge up that battery prior to utilizing the system to protect any of our equipment. This is going to power my cable modem and wireless router that feeds the entire house, and so that's going to give us some protection in case the power goes out. Now I'll be able to run the internet as well as my primary computer systems for a brief period of time until the power comes back. Really, it's designed for those quick little power dips that happen when there's lots of air conditioning running during the summer. In my area, that is a fairly common occurrence. Maybe in your area it's not a big deal, but it's going to be nice to have that protection. So let's go ahead and get this out of the box. And from my other UPS unit, I do know that CyberPower likes you to have these units charged for 8 hours prior to using them. So that's probably going to be something that we have to do. Let's get this styrofoam removed, which is super, super loud. Wow. I hope no one's annoyed by that sound. Yeah, that would get old really quick. That seems like something my kids would do. So of course, gosh, I wonder where they get that from. Anyway, so we've got it out of the box, and there's our message, right? It says important, plug in for 8 hours to charge first. We need to give the system 8 hours of power to charge up the battery prior to being able to use this and having equipment attached. So along with the UPS itself, we've got the instructions and a monitoring cable. We won't be using this particular cable because there's no equipment in my utility room that has the ability to have this USB cable plugged in and the software installed. So we'll just put that aside. Maybe we can use that cable for something else. Now, just like the larger big brother of this unit, some of these plugs are surge protection only. So all of them across this top row are simply protecting against spikes in the power that's being delivered. The lower row is the surge protection plus battery. So these are the ones that I need to plug my equipment in that I don't want to have lose power in the event that my house power goes out for some brief period of time. Now I say that way, that's an important thing to understand. This is not going to run my equipment for more than just a few minutes. Okay, but that's really what I'm trying to protect against. In the event that we're talking about my computer, we will have that monitoring software on there, and what it's going to do is tell the system to shut down gracefully prior to the battery completely giving out. So that would be my goal, to close up those open files, get the system powered down so that it doesn't spontaneously lose power. Then when the power is returned, come back up, or worse, right? Sometimes these power flickers happen multiple times in a short period of time. That's bad for the equipment to keep power cycling it like that. And a lot of times these events come with dips in power or increases in power, those spikes. So it's going to really help protect the equipment from getting damaged. And that's my primary goal, along with being able to weather those tiny little blips in the power where it drops temporarily and then comes back, keep me from having to restart systems in those events.
Okay, good job. Why don't we show now the battery replacement?
I also highly recommend using the original manufacturer replacement parts versus getting a cheap knockoff battery online. Here's my thinking. It's not that there aren't good ones that are made to replace the original manufacturer battery, but the problem is knowing which one is good versus bad. What you'll find is the very cheap ones that aren't manufactured to the same standards, they might perform okay at first, but then eventually they're not going to recharge the batteries as well, and they're going to have a reduced life. And for the little bit of money difference, at least in my case, it wasn't worth taking that chance, so I went with the original manufacturer battery, as you're going to see in the video. So with that, why don't we go ahead and watch. Okay, so here's our replacement battery. I'm going to go ahead and carefully, I don't know how close to the surface this battery is going to be, so I don't want to go cutting into it potentially, but I'm going to go ahead and use my handy dandy box cutter. Actually, truth be known, this technically is for installing wallpaper. There you go. Now you know the truth. It's a wallpaper knife. So we have our instructions for the unit and information about battery disposal. We have a whole episode on recycling that'll be coming up, right? So it's important in a computer equipment's case, in batteries case, that we properly dispose of these items because they contain materials that are not good for the environment. We don't need to leach those out. So not only is it bad for the environment, but in most municipalities, that's going to be an illegal act. So you don't want to be a bad steward and do something illegal. There's lots of places, most of your standalone battery stores will take these batteries and recycle them for you. There's also large box stores that have recycling programs. Sometimes it's a bring an item in and you have to pay to recycle it, but they give you a gift card to their store. So it really depends on your location where you can take these items to recycle them. But there's a multitude of choices in most places. And so I highly recommend that you seek those out and do not dispose of these batteries improperly, and computer equipment in general. The batteries contain lead, and that obviously would be a really, really bad thing to put into a landfill. So let's go ahead and get our battery removed. And by the way, you should be doing this work with the cable disconnected. Terminal connected, so now we've got our battery installed, and we're ready to affix the battery compartment door back to the unit. So you just line the tabs up. So they're going to slide in, and boom, we're connected again. So this battery probably came fairly low on battery charge, so we're going to plug this in and charge it up for a while, and then test to make sure that this replacement battery is going to do the trick for us. So hopefully this is going to return this particular unit back to service, since the battery had failed and it was giving us an indicator light that that was the case. And with a replacement battery, we should be protecting equipment again. So to recap what we've discussed today, a UPS is really a battery pack designed to prevent equipment from shutting down unexpectedly and immediately because of a brief power event. Along with providing power when the power goes out, UPSs also protect against additional power-related events, much like a power strip does, but many times do an even better job than a power strip can. UPSs come in a variety of sizes and capabilities, often determined by the price of the unit. You should make sure that the UPS you select matches at least the minimum power requirements of the equipment you plan to connect to it. You can exceed those capabilities by as much as you like in order to gain additional runtime, for example, but understand that you're probably going to reach a point where you're constrained by your budget. The battery in your UPS will eventually need to be replaced, much like your car battery. At that time, it may make sense to replace the entire UPS or get a replacement battery for it. Either way, you should dispose of the old UPS or the failed battery responsibly. So Keith, any final thoughts on UPSs?
Final closing thought has to do with all of the affiliate links that we have. So everything that we talked about today, from the UPS systems themselves to some of the guidelines about how to pick things, they're included in the affiliate links below. And I'm pointing down because I guess I'm just assuming that that's where all of these links will be.
That's a great point, Keith. We'd certainly appreciate it if you use the Amazon affiliated links below. Even if you end up finding something else of interest and purchase that, it's going to benefit the channel. If you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please smash that like button.
Also, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. That way you'll get notifications the next time we release new content. We're on day 2 of 7, I believe, in our 7 days marathon. And if you didn't like the content today, go ahead and click the dislike button, and don't forget to mention in the comments that it was all Bruce's fault.
On that note, it's time to cut Keith off and let you know that you'll see us on the next episode.
Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified of new videos. Why hit the dislike button when it feels so good to hit like? It's